Hello, peace from both the comic book world and the manga world. It's your boy Mario Kusakabe. Today's episode is a special one because I've been wanting to do this episode for a while, like truly for a while. But I wanted to get like a lot of prospects and get some charts going and see some numbers, and also ask a few different people from both sides, retailers, fans, overall. And I'm talking today about the difference in why manga is outselling, outperforming comic books, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And that's actually kind of crazy and sad for a few, because I started reading comic books as a kid, and as a lot of my friends, well, the older guys, and some of the younger guys as well, like, read comics, but little by little, we have been caught ourselves, including myself, reading more manga than actual comics. And why is that? I asked myself that question. Why? Why am I reading more manga than actual comics? And then I started looking at the numbers. I started to look at the reasons why for me. I started to ask some friends that they are in the industry as retailers, and some other friends from different demographics, to see which one they prefer and which one they like, and what's the main reason. And it really hit home. I started to say like around 6 years ago that I started to read a lot more manga than I do comic books. Don't get me wrong, I grew up reading comic books as a kid. Like, I remember my first comic book I started to read was Superman, and then the Super Friends, and then the Justice League. As a kid in Peru, those were my first books. Besides, of course, the other books that I sell over there in Peru, but that was my main book. Then there was some Thors in there involved, because I also like Thor, Iron Man as well. But I always watched anime as a kid, because they used to show a lot of anime. My guess now it touches all three, contents, pillars that I do on this channel. And it was very interesting how now when I came here, a few moons ago, I started to continue to read comics. But then I have caught myself and started to read more manga. And I think all it started, more of my manga reading, started with One Piece. Caught me off surprise, caught me off guard. I'm like, what is this? Wow. So it was fantastic. This was before more or less Shonen Jump and Wiz Video, they started to do the actual translation suddenly here. You could get translations in New York back in the day, in certain places, in certain comic book Comic Cons, some places in Chinatown. You could able to actually get these mangas, non-official subtitles, but they were good, and they still caught the attention, and that's what got my manga reading here. But I will still read comics. Comics has always been my backbone. Again, Superman, Justice League, Thor, the Avengers, not Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Ben Reilly Spider-Man. When he was introduced, he was fantastic. 2099 Spider-Man. Just a bunch of comic books. Let's see. With Watchmen, which it was fantastic when I first read it. From George Perez, Gods, War of the Gods, which it was a fantastic storyline. It was just fantastic. I was like, oh my god, this is just amazing. Just so much books that I read, that I still read. But again, why do I read more manga now? And it's actually quite simple. And I blame this to the industry here. is the lack of content. Simple as that. And also, there's too many books telling two different stories, and they don't make sense at all. Sometimes you read a book, a comic book, and I'm like, okay, it's nothing. They don't do nothing anymore. Like, there's like, oh my god, I cannot wait for the next issue to read it. They don't do that anymore. It's like it has become such a lazy writing. And that's why the numbers have fallen so much in the comic book industry. And I'm talking like all three books. All three big, sellers, which is DC, Marvel, and Image Comics. Image has stayed afloat because they have noticed that we need to sell content. And that's what people want. That's why some of their books, they lasted like certain runs a few years, but it was just the one story that said it was over. Simple as that. From Invincible, which was a fantastic run. And I think that's one of the best superhero books that ever came out. And I'm a Superman fan, but I love Invincible. It was such well written. The Walking Dead, same thing. It was just one book focused on the one story. Simple as that. Again, I stopped reading it after, what is it, issue 100, I think? Because then I'm like, repetitive again. And that's where Walking Dead fell into that trap. Recycle the same content. And I purchased the books, but I wasn't reading them. Simple as that. And then Saga came around from Image, and it was telling that story from Saga. I'm like, okay. It caught my attention, but it wasn't for me. I don't know. It was just, I don't know. It was, I don't know. Not for me, again. But Invincible was telling that great story, which lasted like, what, 10 years, I think it lasted? Maybe more than that, maybe 15 years. But it was a great run, filled with character development, storytelling, good action, good content. You were like, oh my god, like, what's going to happen to this kid? What's going to happen to Earth? With DC and Marvel, they haven't done that in a long time. I think, to me, again, as much as I'm a DC fan, I think the last good story that was completely different and captivating, it was, Death Metal? I think it was Death Metal. And then before that, it was, I would say, Infinite Crisis. Because Infinite Crisis was just fantastic. But Death Metal was the last story that I think that I was like, wow, this is real good. Then after that, again, I have read the other stories that they have come out, but they don't have the same content. I'm like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? But that's what I think the issue with comic books here. And Marvel, I'm sorry, it's yes, Marvel. Like, I buy, as much as I think the last good story from Marvel was, and it's actually a Thor book. It's what? Which is that's right, Mighty Thor. Because that was actually really good, and I was surprised about how good that actually was. Then Thor Return. That's right, the new Thor book. It's actually good too. But again, the thing is, it's focusing on that one character and the one story, and it's actually good writing, good storytelling, and that's the good thing. That's what you want. But then you have other books like X-Men. It's a gazillion X-Men books, but they don't tell nothing. It's just lazy writing. Same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man is more or less their milk cow. It's lazy writing. Immortal Hulk was actually a good story too. I actually read Immortal Hulk. That was actually pretty good. But again, once it ended, nothing else. So that's the thing with comic books, and it's actually sad. And with DC, it's the same. As much as I'm a Superman fan, but they haven't been a good Superman book in a while. And I'm a fan. I have the tattoo and everything. I'm a fan. I have read as much as Superman books that I have. And online, I'll be able to actually read the other books. But the difference that I noticed between those books, the old books, compared to now, again, is the content. It's the reading material. Now there's nothing. Before, I remember when the death of Superman was happening, everybody was like, something like, oh my God, that's actually going to happen. They're actually going to kill him. I was one of them. Like, with that issue came out with the black cover and the S on red, I was like, oh my God. Like, I went to pick it up. I picked up a few. I opened one, I read one, I was like, oh my God. It was just epic. It was a slugfest for like all those issues. Like, you see the Justice League getting annihilated. Simple as that. And Superman was the only one able to go toe-to-toe against Doomsday. But that was simple. It was good. It was good, but it was simple. But what came after, it was just epic. Like, the whole storytelling after, like, the 1 year after Superman passed away, when the show Bebop. Was it Bebop? Yeah. All these different characters. Friends of Superman. The funeral for a friend. The introduction of 4 new characters. It was just fantastic for his return. Fantastic storytelling for 1 year. They did that. Superman came back. It was epic. It was awesome to see the man all over again. But then what happened after that? We go to Superman Blue and Superman Red. I do like the costume, but lazy writing. Same thing with Batman books. There's too many of them. Why? I understand, a lot of people like Batman, but there's no substance in the stories. There's nothing. Simple as that. Justice League, the same thing. Some books are good. Some stories are great. But then, after that, it falls into the whole, to mediocre. And I always think that DC carry the comic book literature storytelling compared to Marvel and Image, especially Image back in the 90s, because it was just, like a Michael Bay movie. Don't get me wrong, fancy explosions, like colors, and like boom, pow. But that's about it. Now with manga. I've been reading One Piece for 20 plus years. Literally. I've been watching the anime for 20 plus years now. And it's just phenomenal writing from Ishiro Oda. It's been 25 years, 26 years now, of amazing writing. That every time a new chapter, when I read online, I cannot wait for a new chapter to come out every week. Then I'm like, oh my God, what is going to happen to the Straw Hats? What is happening to the world of One Piece? And then when the volumes come out, I buy them as well to collect them. Simple as that. Then we go to Bleach. Same thing with Bleach. An amazing concept, amazing storytelling. It got a little repetitive, but it was still good storytelling. Sales were to the roof. Naruto, I'm not a fan of Naruto. Both Naruto or Shippuden, I'm not a fan. But the fan base is there. Like, I could see why people, because I did watch both series. And I see why, because the storytelling was okay. But nothing compared to One Piece or even Bleach. But I could see the fan base why. I'm like, okay, because they were telling a story. It was a good story. It wasn't okay. To me, it was an okay story. Not a good story, but it was an okay story. But it lasted for so many years. And then so many other mangas that they just come out. And not just only from Japan now, they're coming from Korea as well. Some of those mangas are amazing. So why now, for the past 6 years, manga sales are, bulldozing. They're like, 63% now of the sales here Because now it's funny how they changed now manga they put into like graphic novels. It's funny, so so like they could say face here, but everybody knows no, manga is manga from Japan. Nothing to do with America. Simple as that. Or American storytelling. And also what I think that it is, the main issue is like here they're focusing way too much to some diverse thing. They're focusing on little things that people truly like. Don't care. Don't care at all about it. Like if you want to create a brand new character that is either a homosexual or she's a lesbian or whatever, sure, no problem, create it. But then out of nowhere you are switching characters that they were already established in like say they have 40 years of continuity of being, like say straight, either male or female. But now they're either homosexual or a lesbian. Like, why? Like, nobody minds, and there's a new character. It's like when the X-Men introduced North Star as a homosexual. I'm like, okay, homosexual. It's a brand new character, nobody cares. Like, I didn't mind. It's not that I didn't care, but I didn't mind. Simply, I'm like, all right, part of the X-Men, like, good for him. Simple as that. It was very organic, very natural. So nobody had an issue with it. Same thing when Nick Niner and Apollo, both of them came out of being homosexuals. I'm like, okay, simple as that. Everybody more or less knew it was the take of Superman and Batman, put out homosexuals. And they had their own version of the Justice League with the Authority. Which is fine, nobody cared. It was cool, no problem. Like, you know what? I like the Authority. It was actually a good story. It was a good book. Again, but then it became the lazy writing. And lately, Marvel and DC, they've been doing that. They just been switching characters or gender switching characters for like no apparent reason. Like nobody cares that you're gonna bring a new character. It's like when DC brought a bunch of new characters, which I think it was fantastic. They introduced Jessica Cruz as a female Green Lantern for Earth, which I think it was fantastic. Simon Bass, he was from the Middle East, so I'm like, okay, it's fantastic. We have another Lantern. And what was funny with him, because he actually was carrying a gun all the time. And they're like, why are you carrying a gun if you have a power ring? I'm like, yeah, what happened in the power ring runs out of power. I need to defend myself. That's what I have a gun. I'm like, you know what? Perfect sense. Not a bad idea. Good storytelling. And that's why sometimes those books are still selling, but not selling as how they should. Because then the storytelling becomes lazy. And that's the issue here. While in manga, it's a ridiculous amount of books of mangas that come out. Like we're talking here. From My Hero Academia, My Hero Academia Vigilante, Chainsaw Man now. One Piece that is still selling. It's 26 years and it's still selling. And it keeps on going. From what's Jujutsu Kaisen, which is one of the biggest sellers, not just here but around the world. And the list just continues. Fairy Tail, Black Clover. I read a lot of manga. Fire Force, Soul Eater. It's a lot of books. It's a lot of manga. And people buy them by the tons. And it's funny because each manga volume is more or less, give or take, it's like $10. Some of them are a little bit more, some of them are a little less, but it's more or less like around $10. And that's another thing with comic books. Comic books were being like such a small, like literally very thin book, because it's only 24 pages? And out of 24 pages, I would say 4 are trailers now. Because like you see like advertisement here or there. I'm like, okay, so it's 4 pages of advertisement and 4 pages of only storytelling, which is storytelling is lazy writing. And for that, I'm paying now, close to $5? And depending how many books, I'm like, okay. So now, and that's another issue with the comic book industry. I'm like, you're charging more, you are providing less to the fans. And that's why the fans are going someplace else, which is manga. Jawamushi Pedal, a fantastic manga as well about cycling. Who doesn't like cycling? I know I love cycling. And it's fantastic. It's still going. But that's what I'm saying. That's the issue right now currently with the comic book industry. Less content, less substance, but you're charging more when across the world they're giving you more content for the same price. It's been the same price for a long time. No increase unless it's like a special volume or something. And then if you see the Shonen Jump books that comes out weekly, because that comes out weekly, it's massive. Like, this is massive. And then when they have the monthly issues, it's even bigger. We're talking this size. And the mangas are like, this thick. And then you compare the comics, it's like this. And then when graphic novels come out, I'm like, okay. But that's what I think they should start doing more. Focusing here on graphic novels instead of individual issues. I think they will have a better result. But it's also about the content. If the content is not good, if the storytelling is not that good, nobody's going to buy it. That's why now, if you see certain charts, I think it's on this side or that side. You see the comic books now, they're trying to average, 70,000 projections for a book? 70,000. Now we're talking of, 350 million U.S. citizens here, or people living in the U.S., and you only averaging and hoping you could get 70, 80,000 books to sell, while manga is outselling you by 100,000, 300,000 books. One Piece is averaging 1 million books, 1 million volumes when it comes out. I'm like, and the hype is there. The hype is for, as much as I don't like it, for Chainsaw Man. I don't enjoy it, but the hype is there. People want to read it. The hype is for Jujutsu Kaisen, and I love Jujutsu Kaisen. It's a great story. But why the hype is not like that for comic books anymore? And I think that's the issue. Not just an issue here, it's an issue worldwide. Because again, I used to read comics in Peru. Same ones from here, but translated in Spanish in Peru. Now, I've spoken to a friend, because now in Peru they have a Comic-Con, and now they have an anime show. And it's funny how she was saying that when the Comic-Con show first showed up, there was mostly comics. There was a lot of pop culture, stuff like that, but it was mostly comics. COVID happened, that stopped. Now that COVID is more or less gone away, conventions began. Now she says it's a 60-40. 60 on manga, pop culture, animation, figures, all that stuff. And 40 when it comes to comics and like superheroes, like Superman, Batman, Thor, Justice League, Avengers, Swamp Thing. But you see the difference now. And when it's an anime show in Peru, it's just nothing but anime. Like, you don't see nothing superheroes at all. And that's another interesting, and that's happening in Peru. So now imagine the manga is outreaching and out-muscling the comic book industry. Not just here in home turf, but around the world. Why? Better storytelling. Simple concept. If you tell a good story, people will buy it. If you keep writing the nonsense and the cheap writing that you're putting, the comic book industry is going to fall. And that will hurt me a lot. So I'm a huge fan. But it's DC's and it's Marvel's fault for have relied for the past, I would say 10 years, lazy writing. And too many books of the same character. Like, there is no need to have a gazillion Spider-Man books. Why? Judge Dredd only has one book, and that's been selling since, what, the 60s? When it first came out, what, Judge Dredd came out in the 60s? And it's still selling. And the amazing thing with Judge Dredd, he ages as the book ages. Which, that's fantastic. That is amazing. Here, again, I understand Some of you are gonna say, "Oh, manga does the same thing," but manga stories end. Even One Piece is going to end. More or less, it's already being hit and told by Ishiro Oda that it's going to end by the 30th anniversary. So we have One Piece for 4 more years, and that's it. It's over. But people will still revive the whole thing if you never. There's new readers because they're like, oh, let me read One Piece. They're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Oh, this is Bleach. Let me read it. But with comics, it's not that. Because there's also no attraction to new minds, fresh minds. You're just relying on the old culture and the older generation. You know, that's realistic. I'm in the older generation. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That is actually crazy. But that's what I mean, though. If you keep writing this laziness, this nonsense, I see comic books disappearing, and they're just gonna go digital. Simple as that. And manga will take over. It's already taken over. You know, Wiz Media, which is more or less the worldwide seller distributor from Shonen Jump, they have the partnership. It's all selling books here, and that's also another thing, which is actually crazy. Every manga, I'm not going to say every manga, but a good percentage of manga that comes out, I would say 60% of the manga that come out, they will eventually become anime, which is crazy. And they will get popular, and they will have a long run. Again, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Soul Eater, Fire Force, Ultraman. Yet comic books here, they don't have animation for the shows. They only have like a year, 2 years, and it's over. One Piece has been around for what, 25 years? 26 years? 25 years on the animated? 25 years. What, Detective Conan has, what, 30 years? You know what, Detective Conan, I call it shorts because it's like, 10-minute episodes, but again, it's been around for 10 years though, for 30 years. And you mean to tell me we cannot have a Justice League book, a Justice League animated show that continues more than that? Or with the Avengers, or with, Justice League, with Superman, with Batman, and, 3-4 years, so that's too much, it's over. Because people are not watching. Why? Because it's lazy writing, lazy animation. It all falls down to very simple. It's laziness and not a good content. Lazy content. People read comic books to get out of the craziness of the world. Nobody cares about political views, ideologies, or that. We already have more than enough of that. You're not going to captivate new audience with that nonsense at all. Because nobody cares about it. If you read manga, you don't see none of that in the manga show. They might tell you a few things. I'm like, okay, but they're very subtle, very smart the way they do it. Now with comic books, now lately, they want to jam it on your throat. Simple as that. Nobody cares about it. Again, I have spoken with a few people from the industry. I will not say from where, but they're saying the same thing. If things don't change. I see, because now they passed that law, the copyright law, that AI cannot be sued. So anything that AI does now pretty much is a go. Simple as that. So now I see certain companies. So I'm like, you know what? Let me fire a bunch of people that truly cannot write, cannot edit, cannot draw. Just get a software to do those books. Oh my God, there we go. But I would still think that you will keep the good comic book writers and artists around. In manga, that's not happening. Because it's so much creativity. He is so simple, so relaxed, so chill. Like, and it's chill like in a bad way, because it's like, oh my god. They have a whole month to worry about one book. In Japan, they have, and not just Japan, in Korea as well, they have 1 week for one chapter. Hello, McFly. Hello. And those chapters and that storytelling and that artwork is fantastic. And again, I always go with Shiro Oda. Shiro Oda is, my God, he is amazing. And his team now is just phenomenal. Simple as that. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys like this conversation that we had, that I had to, I think, let the comic book industry know. Because it's really sad that this is the way that we're going, and that it might end, I would say, they keep this up, I would say 5-6 years. And that would be sad. That would be sad. So yeah, guys, not people love for you guys, appreciate you guys. And I'll see you in the next chat. See ya.